Welcome to SSI's Security Speaking podcast, brought to you by Security Sales and Integration. Each episode features thought leaders from throughout the professional security channel discussing technology, winning business practices, hot industry trends, and emerging opportunities. We appreciate your interest and encourage you to subscribe to Security Sales and Integration and its newsletters. Regularly visit securitysales.com for the latest news and follow SSI on social media. Thank you.
So, and Abe, speaking of some of your comments, you mentioned a little while ago about some of the opportunity side of it. And so we're hearing, things about contact tracing and thermal temperature sensing and infrared and all these kinds of things. How much do each of you see a lot of opportunity in this? How much do you think is real? How much do you think maybe is somewhat pie in the sky? So who'd like to jump in first on that one?
I can jump in. Well, being through the whole up and down of the COVID here thus far, so definitely in talking about reopening, there's been a tremendous amount of traction in those conversations of temperature, thermal, contact tracing, people counting and whatnot. There's been a lot of interest, and we've actually implemented many of those systems already. But I think more, and it might be a trend, it might be a fad that will go away. I don't know. I don't think anyone knows for sure what's going to be. But I think more important than the actual traction for these subsystems like temperature sensing and people counting, which is not the meat and potatoes of what we do, is the more important thing is that we have a open dialogue with our clients. We're on weekly calls, planning their opening, talking about their security requirements, speaking about these type of needs that they might need, introducing new manufacturers to them. It's become a tremendous opportunity for us to work with our clients and have that open dialogue remain very relevant to them. And we found that to be an excellent opportunity for us.
That was Abe. Thank you.
I'll jump in. This is Mike. If you told me I have to tell you today whether it's trend or fad, I'm going to go with fad. I think as soon as there's a vaccine, this is going to calm down. That being said, I think there's a market for it right now. We have sold a couple and are in the process of installing them. I think the one we have proposed several, but there's been a little sticker shock. I'm cautious about them too. I just feel like, okay, these really work. But in talking and vetting them, they seem to. So we'll see. I certainly would not be emphasizing this in my business planning for the next 12 to 18 months. My opinion today is that it's a fad. But again, that's simply an opinion, and it's probably not worth anything. So.
All right. Thanks, Keegan. What do you think about these opportunities?
So I also think, depending on in specific, but this temperature, thermal cameras and reading of that, the minute we find a solution, whether it's a right medication, right vaccine, whatever that is, it's gonna fade away. I think it's, in my eyes, make you feel good piece of equipment, because the camera reads your temperature and you come in, but there is no way to know whether the person is positive or negative with this virus. But that said, what it's helped with is we're starting to talk to customer about more intelligent system, more features which will allow you to track somebody where they've been in your facility, whether through face recognition and maybe Julan and some of the other manufacturers have come up with some very interesting product that VMS is doing a lot more intelligence with the camera system as a person, what part of the building, what cameras did you walk in front of, and almost trace you where. So if you needed to, and that could be utilized for more than just the virus spread, it could be utilized for auditing something if a bad incident happens, something got stolen, all of that to be utilized. And people are paying more attention to that. Customers are listening to that more. Prior to this, I thought when we started to pitch this, they didn't have just as much interest what they have today because it makes more sense to them. So that part will help us as an industry because more and more people want their system to be that much more intelligent than just sit and watch what's going on. So beyond that, a lot of touchless sensors such as car access, open those doors without anybody touching anything, make them more intelligent. So that's where I think we all will benefit from, but not so much as those thermal cameras. We also tested a bunch of them. We quoted 3 or 4. One is in the test at the customer site is a school system, which they want to deploy one at every school. But there's a whole bunch of reasons why they can't, because now you're identifying a kid and pronouncing it the rest of the people who are trying to come in that this kid's got high temperature. That's a challenge. So how do you do that and do it efficiently? So if you do it behind a closed door, it's going to take you so much longer to do this. So it becomes impractical. So there's as much as equipment is there, logistics of how it gets deployed is a little more challenging is where I'm going with it. So I don't know that will set the world on fire with thermal cameras, in my opinion. Nevertheless, we jumped in and we tested and we are learning all about it because our customers are asking us questions. So we want to make sure we give them an appropriate, correct answer rather than, some of this junky stuff that's available and they look at this and for $200 they can deploy a camera, which doesn't do anything for them. Nobody's going to calibrate, calibration is a challenge and a whole bunch of other challenges. So that's my opinion on that.
I would add, this is Mike. I would add too that I'm surprised, like our analytics, that has not. I thought we'd have more traction with that because I see analytics as a future. I'm sure you guys, a lot of you do as well. And I'm kind of surprised we've not had more quotes and that has not gone up hardly at all. And I'm shocked by that. I don't know if you guys see it increase or norm or anything.
I have. We've done quite a bit of analytics with the contact tracing and people counting. In fact, we have one client who is one of the largest sports franchises that did a complete upgrade to Bluetooth readers across the board and then added the analytics on top of it. So they have a touchless entry system across their international sites, so they can use your own device, your own phone, to unlock the door, and then the analytic is actually tracing them as they walk through this facility. So that was an exciting project and definitely substantial. Yeah, so we've seen some traction on that side. I think it's coming. I think we're a couple weeks ahead of you guys because we were down in the ditches several months ago, and then people started to dig their way out a little earlier and start thinking about it. So I think it's coming to the rest of the country, and this is
good. Yeah, good. And we see that a lot. You guys get the trends and the first things that, even before a pandemic. You guys, it seems, hits the coast first before it gets to the Midwest. So I'm happy to hear that. So that's good.
Yeah, I think just as an aside, it's so key to manage those customers' expectations through a time like this. There's so much, unsureness, for lack of a better term, and skepticism, and everybody's looking for guidance and help. And so I could see a lot of unrealistic expectations possibly cropping up, and so yeah, I got to keep it real with those guys. Well, we could talk about this topic forever, but let's move on to some other stuff. And let's jump into cybersecurity a little bit. Where are each of your companies in terms of that? How involved are you on the cyber side of things? How involved do you think you'll get on the cyber side of things? And how do you think the industry is progressing in that regard? So, who'd like to jump in first on cyber?
If you'd like, I can.
Go, Abe.
Thank you. So on the cyber side of things, our clients are definitely demanding much more cybersecurity. Fortunately, the manufacturers we work with are taking it seriously. We have been driven by the request of over the last several years of tightening up the cybersecurity policies to have a large cybersecurity insurance policy that we have to carry. Working with very regulated environments like utilities, and healthcare, they have some very strict enforcements of them. And we've seen that they're taking it very seriously. We're taking it very seriously. And we've insured ourselves as such. So definitely something that we are seeing a lot of. Being a government contractor, having a GSA schedule even binds us more strictly to make sure that we're abiding by those policies and only using manufacturers that are approved. So definitely something we take very seriously, something that our customers take very seriously, and we are protecting ourselves as such.
Thank you, Abe.
I'll jump in there. I don't have much to add other than what Abe said. It's similar. Yeah, I mean, every customer is taking it, cybersecurity, very serious. Fitting conversation for the day, because apparently I got several emails this morning that some fishing expedition snagged sent it out to several employees about, hey, I need a favor, I need your personal cell, call me. And so fortunately for us, we do a lot of training with our staff, and we just did another one about 2 weeks ago. So no one fell for it. So kudos to my team for that. But it's just ongoing and never ending, and it's the same. They're demanding insurance policies. They want to know your procedures and everything you do, and that's just going to continue. It will continue to be just a part of the future.
Don't be a clicker, right?
Right. Exactly. And always hover over that email address.
Mm-hmm. So this is Kagan. I think I concur with the other two who just mentioned a whole bunch of precautions we are taking. Interestingly enough, our healthcare, we do a bunch of hospitals have come out with a very stringent, very good policy, which has made them change a whole bunch of equipment, which were legacy equipment, old equipment, to the latest and greatest, so that it meets all their cyber security requirement. They've set the level. We have to, anytime we deploy a new piece of equipment, they first check and make sure it will comply with their regulations before we can deploy it. And it has become a little bit, it used to be a big challenge. Now it's getting easier and easier. Like they described, is that our industry is now taking it very seriously and addressing a lot of the needs that they weren't there good 16, 18 months ago. In the last 18 months, they've come a long way. We also have partnered up with a network security kind of company locally, because our knowledge is limited. Once in a while, we'll get a customer who has our system deployed, looking to improve their security, network security, and we would recommend a partner who would go and kind of do a survey and tell them what needs to be improved and where at what level. But we would definitely, we have in-house capability to definitely understand the type of equipment we're deploying and make sure it meets the requirement for the customer. And we do not, the fact that we are also DoD certified integrator, we were early in learning all the things, what to do and what don'ts were. And we regularly get audited every year to make sure we're complying with all their requirements. As to how we store things, how we communicate, what goes on, what doesn't go on. all of that we were trained early on, and that made it a little bit easier to understand. And then we also have to regularly train our employees, a little bit of turnover, a little bit of, if you don't keep reminding them, they may forget it, and something to a small crack would fall through, kind of thing. But we have a quarterly training unless something comes up and we choose to bring people in to make sure they understand what we're talking about, what not to do, type of thing.
Thank you, Keegan. So, cyber, of course, lends itself well to a managed services model. Let's continue along that line. Access and video as a service. To what extent are each of you involved with that? And to what extent are you interested in being involved with it? So let's just go right all back to Abe to start on that one.
Sure. So managed services, we don't do a lot of. We see it a little bit for smaller companies, but most of our clients are larger, national, or as I mentioned before, critical infrastructure. They have their own GSOCs, they have their own security team, they have their own private cloud many times, definitely their own IT departments that prefer to host and manage their own systems for cybersecurity reasons as well as budget reasons and control reasons. So we don't see a lot of the hosted requests with the verticals that we work with.
Well, Abe, before we move on, what is your company's leading recurring revenue stream, would you say?
Recurring revenue stream, so it would be our service agreements and our software maintenance agreements. That would be our leading recurring revenue. Alarm is not our big recurring revenue. Alarm systems, monitoring, so on. Video monitoring, not as well. So our largest recurring revenue stream would be our maintenance agreements and software maintenance agreements.
And are you increasingly able to do some of the troubleshooting and even remediation remotely through a platform?
Oh, absolutely, yes. We have dedicated engineers, programmers, technicians that sit back now at their home offices, but typically at our home office, and their sole job is to do support remotely, and it's been an unbelievably effective method of supporting our clients. It's been cost effective, it's been time effective, and it's really been a huge plus over the last few years, getting stronger and stronger.
Do you use any tools that you'd be willing to mention by name, or is it proprietary, or what?
So that's interesting. I have no issue mentioning it, but most of that is driven by the IT department that we're working with. So depending on what token they're using or VPN software that they're using, that's typically driven by them, and that's why we're mandated to use what they require. It's usually a lengthy process of vetting in order to be able to get that access. Sometimes we have to use their company laptops even to be on their VPN. It's pretty intense, but once we have it in place, it's a terrific tool.
Thank you. Mike?
Okay, yeah, so managed access, yeah, huge for us. We've been doing it for a long time. It's part of our past, it's part of our present, it's part of our future. I'm a huge believer in it. We are not a installation company. We are a service provider. That's how I see it. And every customer, as far as I'm concerned, we're servicing them, and we need to be getting some sort of recurring revenue out of them. Whether we're monitoring their fire alarm, their burglar alarm, we're managing their access, we're doing health monitoring on their video, we're pulling video for them, we're doing video guard tours, you name it, we're doing it for them. And not to get on a soapbox, but I would highly recommend everybody do that. So if you have a customer that is a long-standing customer, You should be monitoring their fire alarm if they want you to, or their security. And if you need somebody to monitor it, I'll do it for you. But I wouldn't give up any recurring revenue ever. So I think the more you continue to talk to that customer and be that service provider, the bigger and better you'll be.
So obviously you're satisfied with the vendor platforms that are out there now to bring that to fruition.
Yeah, I've actually I'm looking at one. I'm signing a platform right now to bring some more video into our monitoring center as we speak, so it can do a better job of health monitoring on NVRs and things of that nature, and be able to talk to more access control and all that. So we just continue to sell it as a service, and we're finding more and more customers. Now you're going to have your applications, some of your large customers that have their own sockets and those type of things, and so you're going to have to work with them accordingly. But that's going to be more of a software support type stuff and all that type from a monthly standpoint. But I think, and maybe moving forward, as companies take kind of a backseat as profits kind of go down this year, and they're going to probably want to eliminate some of those things. So I see those as an opportunity to be that service provider for them. And instead of them hiring staff to do something, pay me a monthly fee, and I'll do it for you. Because we all know finding people right now is very, very hard. We're not getting no certified technicians is walking through the door today wanting to be interviewed, I'm guessing. I know they aren't here. If they are at your place, send them to Omaha, I'll take them. But that's just not happening. And so the more you can be a service provider for your customer and help them out, the better off you're going to be, and the more sticky they are, and they'll stay with you as long as you provide that service for them. Now, we certainly have the advantage of the monitoring center. That's certainly a huge advantage for us, but there's other ways integrators can do that.
To what extent do you monitor for other companies?
We do not a lot, but we kind of have our handful select. We've got a couple PSA customers that we're working with. One's in Indiana, I'll just say it that way, and he's switching over his systems to us right now, and just a handful here and there. So it's not we're not out trying to be some big third-party provider, but if people are interested to have, I still call it a little more of a personal touch, because why 17,000 customers is a lot. It's not compared to COPS and all the other big ones that, affiliated, and all those are huge. And if you didn't want to do it with me, I'd recommend you find a third-party provider to monitor. I'm just a believer of, if the customer wants me to do the business, I should do the business, unless I'm completely incapable of doing it. I want to do as much as I can to keep him as sticky as possible. So I try to do it all. And if I can third party something out, or have a affiliation with somebody else, like if somebody wanted me to do their cybersecurity, while I'm not a cybersecurity guy, I would find a third party provider to do it for them if that's really what they wanted, and I do it all for them. So.
Thank you, Mike. Ken, where does your company stand with hosted and managed services?
So again, we are also not an intrusion type of provider, but because of the integrated system, we do get into the intrusion systems. But most of our income, for recurring income, comes from the managed services, service contract, and software maintenance, just like Abe described, more or less. We are increasing. The biggest portion we are seeing increasing is the managed services. We have a lot of customers who just give us the system to manage, right down to entering a new user in their system. We input that in, get it ready for them, assign them, whatever needs to be assigned for time zones and all that stuff, and get it back to them. That's been working very good, and that model has worked for a lot of customers who have multiple locations, and they seem to struggle with managing that. Then on the healthcare industry lately, one of the new things they are exploring, which I think will bring a lot of revenue to our industry, would be they're looking to change password of every single device on a quarterly basis. We have a hospital with over 1,000 devices. That's going to be a hefty bill every quarter, reoccurring, that we go. go, not necessarily physically go there, but go into their system and change all the passwords every single device, and that's their recommendation. That's their mandated rule for every device. So we just quoted that, and that's going to be a big boost to us because this one group of hospitals owns 4 or 5 hospitals, and each one has hundreds and hundreds of devices of ours, which need to have quarterly password change. So that's where we see the increases coming from. And we also sell a lot of this card access for appropriate customer, where it's cloud-based, and we generate recurring revenue from that, if you will. So that would be our main source of recurring revenue. So on our part, we last year had made a decision that recurring revenue is a very important part of us reinforcing and trying to sell, and it's all about training the salespeople to think differently. And I'm not going to say we are the expert at it. And Mike, if you ever go to that conversation, I would like to be the third leg on that stool to understand, because you always learn something. But having said that, COVID didn't change our mind by any stretch of imagination. It just reinforces it a little bit more. The reoccurring revenue is the model which will secure your future. These little hiccups that happen for 2-3 months, and hopefully that's all it is. And going forward, COVID will be the thing of past. But it would be big help if you had a reoccurring revenue constantly flowing, if you will, even if it's a little late or something because of COVID. But that's a huge plus. In percentage of revenue, it's very small. We only had a 10% of in our total dollars of revenue. Only 10% is recurring revenue, and it's not big. Our goal was this year, between this year and early next year, to get to up to 20%, because we sell off a lot of systems and new systems, and keep installing and keep servicing them. But reoccurring is not as big of a portion of revenue as I would like it to be. So that's one of the push since last year we've been doing it. So.
And just so that I can clarify, reoccurring is a very important part of our revenue strategy, just not the hosted piece of it. We just signed $1 million reoccurring license agreement last week. So it's that, and that's reoccurring revenue. It's just the hosted side of things is not what where we see it as much, because most of the larger entities have capital budgets, and that's how they spend their money. And the hosted, it sits on their OpEx budget, and they don't have as much there. So that's just the way it works out with the larger entities that we're working with.
Yes, and I would completely agree with Abe on that the hosted and managed access works much better in the small to medium-sized commercial, maybe in some school systems that aren't super big, and those type of things is where we're finding the most success. When you start to get into the really large applications, it's not as viable, and it takes a lot more to sell. So it's more of a small to medium size is where it is. So, but that's where the most success is.
Gotcha. Thank you, Mike.